This is Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century. Greetings, family, and welcome to another wonderful edutainment, infotainment edition of The Art of It Stinks. I'm your host for this empowerment infotainment segment, Brother Ron, also known as R2, C2, H2, The Art of It. And this is the We All Be experience. Welcome to the movement, boys and girls, scholars and laymen. And today or tonight or whatever the time it is, now's the time to learn something new or rediscovered that you already knew, what you forgot that you knew. And we're going to be talking about the pardon, the full pardon, posthumously, that's after death, that's life after death or after death, of the one and only Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champion in boxing history. And it was not done by President Obama, the first so-called black president in United States history, but it was done by Donald Trump, the first orange president in U.S. history. I kid, I joke. But isn't it ironic that it is Donald Trump, the same cat who got the NFL owners so shook that they have made their $40 million slaves behave as it relates to the national anthem, that he will be the one of all people to pardon Jack Johnson, who basically was not guilty of anything but being a proud, confident, cocky, uppity, according to white folks, black man who was not afraid, who dared to be himself at a time where black folks were being lynched every day or day and a half in this country. We just opened the lynching museum down in Montgomery, Alabama, or the lynching memorial. They call it something else because they don't, we still got this thing about offending white folks about a thing called truth and reality. We got this thing, black folks, of always apologizing to the oppressor for our oppression. But like First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt once said, you can only make me feel inferior with my consent. That means that really, when it comes down to it, it's a choice. People got on Kanye about, he said slavery is a choice. Jack Johnson knew that slavery was a choice. He knew that feeling inferior was a choice, and he chose to be himself. He dared to be himself. And the powers that be sought to punish him for being himself. They actually made a law called the Mann Act, which made it criminal to transport women across state lines for so-called immoral purposes. Jack Johnson's greatest sin was dating and screwing white women at a time where lynching the black people was the national pastime. Jack Johnson was bedding white women for sport. Think about what I just said. At a time when they're massacring whole parts of towns, all black towns. Think about so-called Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, back in 1921. Think about Rosewood, 1923. Think about Elaine, Arkansas race massacre of 1919. Think about the East St. Louis race riots of 1917. Think about all the Red Summer 1919. Think about New Orleans riots of 1900, or the so-called Robert Charles riots, where you got black folks getting lynched and massacred just for existing. Really, a lot of the lynching victims at this time were actually business owners. So they lynched our economics. They massacred our generational wealth. So you had this black man who dared to not only sleep with white women, but to marry white women at a time in many places in this country where interracial marriage was outlawed. Think about that couple from Virginia back in the 60s. That interracial couple that dared to challenge the status quo. Jack Johnson was doing this by himself decades earlier. You know, they used to show films of Jack Johnson fights. Anytime Jack Johnson won a fight, white folks get really upset. They get so upset that they start lynching black folks and start burning down black parts of towns around this country. Louis Armstrong, the great Louis Satchmo Armstrong, talk about this. Oh, Jack Johnson won a fight in there. Oh boy, got to run back home. They actually banned showing films of his fights in movie theaters because it upset the white folks so much. Think about it. You know, Jack Johnson was the first black heavyweight champion, but it took decades later for another black champion to come on the scene named Joe Louis. You know, the moniker the Great White Hope was developed to try to find a white boxer to take out Jack Johnson, to put the boy back in his sunken place, to put him back in his place. You know, Jack Johnson won the heavyweight championship back in 1908. He knocked the F out Tommy Burns, a white dude down in Australia, down under. He put him down under and down under. Jim Jeffries, who was the former heavyweight champion, I think he retired as the heavyweight champion. White Jim Jeffries did not want to fight Jack Johnson, but he was recruited and labeled the Great White Hope. People like the white nationalist author Jack London was encouraging Jim Jeffries to win back the honor of the white race. So think about it. Jack Johnson was known as the Galveston Giant. He was from Galveston, Texas. It's a solid chocolate granite man, very physically fit, charismatic, was sporting the bald head before there was a Jordan. You know, he was ahead of his time. And he got his start, fighting in battle royales. I know a lot of you wrestling fans think of battle royale. You think about Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair, all these wrestling guys. But really, the battle royales were started. You had, black boys blindfolded in a ring trying to knock each other out, and the last person standing won all the money. You had white men surrounding the ring, cheering these black boys on. They all had blindfolds on. They would throw money, coins, and dollars and whatnot on the ground, and the last person standing would collect the money, was the winner. They showed this in the James Brown biopic of young James Brown participating in the battle royale. And also, this is I believe the opening scene of Ralph Ellison's masterpiece, The Invisible Man. His literary masterpiece, The Invisible Man, I believe opens with a battle royale. So this is the information that I'm going to give you all that they're not going to talk about in so-called mainstream news and fake news. I'm giving y'all real history that y'all can look up. Take a look. It's all online. But yeah, I've always been fascinated with Jack Johnson. I'm an artist. I actually worked on a book that I have not published yet, where I had drew his narrative. Actually, I started that in high school, in my early years of college at Washington University in St. Louis. I got a lot of work in me. I got a lot to say. And this is very therapeutic to be able to talk to you all, to share this information with you all. Baba Dick Gregory was on the We All Be platform many times. He talked about how Jack Johnson was the actual inspiration for King Kong. That, King Kong, think about it. King Kong went to New York. The boxing world, the capital of the boxing world was New York. Madison Square Garden was the capital. And, he climbed on the Empire State Building with a white woman in his hands. King Kong, that was based on Jack Johnson. Because white America needs a black boogeyman. White America must have a black boogeyman. Think about it. And the fact that, Jack Johnson betting all these white women like, like Babe Ruth hitting home runs. You know what I'm saying? Because people don't understand, lynching is a form of sex magic ritual. Lynching was and is a form of sex magic ritual where you have white folks getting off on, like, cutting off the black man's genitalia, putting it in jars, preserving it. I mean, I'm sure you got white families to this day who have heirlooms of lynching victims as valuable family keepsakes. I remember I went a couple years ago down to Southampton, Virginia, where Nat Turner is from. And I talked to one of the descendants of the people that Nat Turner and his men killed, a white man who family owned slaves. And they allegedly had, he was, county clerk. They allegedly have Nat Turner's sword in their possession in the county archives. You had white people that said that people don't understand, when they killed Nat Turner, when they crucified or lynched or whatever you want to call it, Nat Turner, they basically destroyed his body. So I guess in a way, so black folks would not have a monument or some type of thing to rally around. They basically destroyed his body. My understanding, they made wallets, wallet where you put your money in, wallets out of his and furniture out of his skin and bones. People say that they have furniture items made from Nat Turner's body, and these are white people in their family possession. The medical doctor who confirmed and I guess butchered Nat Turner's body kept his skull as a family heirloom. As a matter of fact, from my understanding, that skull of Nat Turner was finally returned to the family on the opening weekend of the Birth of a Nation movie, which talks about the Nat Turner Rebellion, which was Nate Parker's Dancing with Wolves or Braveheart. And we have not heard from Nate Parker since that time, and because it's like what's going on now with the Me Too and all this other stuff, and it's like the people who are really being hurt are black men. Hetero black males are being attacked. Our targets are the early targets of the Me Too movement. Morgan Freeman is recently added. I mean, this lynch mob mentality we live in, the same type of mentality. I'm not saying that some of the people who are involved in the accusations, who are accusing people of sexual misconduct, I'm not saying that everybody's lying, but you got to imagine 100 years ago, this type of lynch mob groupthink mentality is the same thing that Jack Johnson was going through. Jack Johnson was just a black man who was trying to live his life, who was trying to pursue his dreams. He wasn't breaking no law, but they made a law, so they say he broke the law. It's called the Mann Act. Once again, it talks about the transportation of women across state lines for immoral purposes. It should have been called the Jack Johnson nigger law, because really it was targeted towards Jack Johnson. And the women that he transported were willing participants in his sexual healing. So I don't know, like Belle Schreiber, I believe, or Schreibner was her name. Jack Johnson had a lot of white women, girlfriends, as well as several wives who were white. I think Belle Schreibner was a Chicago prostitute that was in regular rotation for Jack Johnson. And people don't understand, one way or the other, you're going to have to pay for it. You don't necessarily put a ring on it, but you're going to be paying for it. Ain't no such thing as free sex, okay? There's always consequences. There's always a cause and effect. So never forget, regardless of what you think or may not think, you always paying for it. And Jack Johnson surely has paid for it, and now he has been pardoned, because Jack Johnson has been dead since 1946. Jack Johnson actually had to leave the country. I like the Great White Hope. Get back to the Great White Hope. Jim Jeffries came out of retirement to fight Jack Johnson to reclaim white man's honor as the supreme being on the planet, but he fell miserably. Jack Johnson whooped his ass in, I believe, Reno, Nevada, and returned and kept his heavyweight title. But like I said before, white folks cannot stand the fact of being defeated by a black man. If the black man is the father of civilization, it's like, I look at white people as our children. It's kind of like how you see children misbehaving in grocery stores and restaurants and public places. I know Judge talk about this. It is time for us to reclaim our rightful place as the parent figure of humanity. And Jack Johnson was that type of cat. Because even Jim Jeffries, he got his ass whooped that trick. Had to admit that he could not touch Jack Johnson 1,000 years, even in his prime. He could not outclass Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson was a hell of a defensive specialist. He was Floyd Mayweather before there was a Floyd Mayweather. You understand? A Floyd Mayweather Jr. A brilliant defensive fighter. Could hold his own with anybody. Arguably probably the greatest heavyweight. You know, people talk about Joe Louis. People talk about Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson. But Jack Johnson's right up there. He's in the top 10, if not top 5 or 7 of heavyweight. He just didn't play in the era of social media and 24-hour news and Sports Center. That's the only difference. But you can still find highlight films of him fighting in his prime. The famous or infamous boxing exhibition match with Stanley Ketchel, one of the great boxers in his own right of that era and of all eras, one of the great all-time boxers. Stanley Ketchel, you know, is a scene with Stanley Ketchel, the Michigan assassin, they call him a white boy. He hit Jack Johnson real hard, and it was supposed to be sparring, but Stanley Ketchel, you know, he got full of himself. He had some liquor, I guess he had some liquor courage. He hit Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson wasn't expecting him to hit him like that, and Jack Johnson responded in King Kong fashion. He whooped the shit out of Stanley Ketchel. He beat Stanley Ketchel so bad and hit him so hard that he knocked his grill out. All in his grill, knocked his grill out. You know, he was pulling teeth, Stanley Ketchel's teeth out his boxing gloves. That's how hard Jack Johnson was hitting that man. But anyway, you can see that online, probably on YouTube somewhere. But getting back, you know, that's where the great white hope thing came from. Trying to find a white man to defeat Jack Johnson in the ring. They could not find a white man to defeat Jack Johnson in the ring, so they got the law involved, as they always do, because slave codes are still in effect in 2018. It's still Willie Lynch law in 2018, and it was Willie Lynch law in 1918 and 1915. So Jack Johnson had to leave the country because if he didn't leave the country, he was going to go to jail. And he didn't break no law, really. All he did was being himself. And to really be yourself as a black man during that time was very, very illegal. So he had to leave the country. He ended up fighting this giant white dude named Jess Willard in Cuba, I believe, in 1915. Some people believe he threw the fight in order to, you know, because he was getting homesick. He wanted to go back to America. So I think he probably actually threw the fight, or there was some people think, and some people said, well, he lost the fight fair and square because he was not in good shape when he fought Jess Willard. But I don't know, who knows? I'm not in Jack Johnson's head, you know. I always believe, like Donald Trump said, the game is rigged. And who knows what type of deals went on. But Jack Johnson lost that fight to Jess Willard underneath the blazing sun of Cuba. And in 1920, he ended up turning himself in to the U.S. authorities at the Mexican border. Now you got people like Gerald Horn that said that Jack Johnson was working to start some type of black-brown revolution with Pancho Villa, the famous Mexican revolutionary. But, you know, who knows? I mean, Gerald Horn is one of our brilliant scholars. You know, he write books like Tupac put out albums. He's so prolific. And I Google or YouTube Gerald Horn. But anyway, he served 10 months in federal prison. Jack Johnson was also an inventor. He got a couple of patents. I believe on a wrench is one of his patents. Jack Johnson, you know, served 10 months in prison for loving and bedding white women down. He fought all the way into his 60s. Jack Johnson was renowned for keeping in shape. I mean, he was a fitness nut. And I don't know how long he would have lived. I mean, he was fighting, still doing exhibition stuff in his 60s. Ended up dying in a car wreck in North Carolina. He was mad about the service he did or did not receive at a racist restaurant in North Carolina. They did not want to serve Negroes. So, to my understanding, Jack Johnson left there angry, got on the road, and lost control and ended up killing himself in a car accident. He was in his 60s. And I say all this to say, do yourselves a favor. There's a documentary produced by Ken Burns. I believe Samuel Jackson narrates it. It's called Unforgivable Blackness. It came out on PBS back in 2005. You could probably find it somewhere online. Unforgivable Blackness. It's about the Jack Johnson story. But we should never forget ancestors like Jack Johnson. I mean, he made a choice to be free, and he paid the price for that, to be himself. And he paid the price for decades for that. After, his death, his physical death in 1946, but his spirit lives on. I mean, they did the movie The Great White Hope. The play in the movie is based on his life. James Earl Jones starred in the movie. I believe when the great Muhammad Ali saw the movie and saw the play on Broadway or whatnot, he said, I'm just like Jack Johnson. They crucified me like they crucified Jack Johnson. So even Muhammad Ali, decades later, could identify with the ancestor. Even though, Muhammad Ali, he was a Muslim, a black Muslim. He was into black women. He didn't mess around with the white women. But he could identify Jack Johnson as being a very confident and unapologetically black man, a proud black man, talented and not afraid to speak up and stand out and to know his value and worth. So this is interesting to look at now in 2018. People accuse certain so-called black publications of trying to destroy the image and the persona of a proud, hetero, alpha black male. We can't have those no more in this climate. You think about the days of slavery, Jim Crow and Reconstruction, where, strong black men were put out in the public arena to be shamed and to be embarrassed and to be broken in. You can read stories about how the slave breakers or the slave masters or slave makers rather would take the strongest black alpha male and basically humiliate and embarrass him in front of his people, the black family. Sometimes they would rape these black men, these strong black bucks, in front of the women and the children to strike fear. And that's trauma. And that can be passed down through the generations. It's generational trauma. So we really got to talk about this. Because, when they say they pardoned Jack Johnson, he was not the one who needed to be pardoned. America needs to answer for its sins against black people. Jack Johnson did nothing wrong. America did a lot of wrong. American history, like I tell people, is like a long ass gangster rap album. You talk about misogyny. Think about a white woman could not vote until 1920. In 2 years, we're approaching the 100th anniversary of the woman's right to vote. So if the white man would not even let his own mama vote, how do you think he treated black people? Because black folks was nothing but commodities. We was nothing but property. Chattel slavery. But I don't want to go off in tangents, but I want you to understand something too. President Barack Obama had many times in his 8 years and 2 terms to do right by Jack Johnson, to pardon this black man. But what has Obama done for black people? Think about what happened in Ferguson. I was down in Ferguson in 2014 when a Democratic governor used illegal chemicals on the so-called citizens of Ferguson to protest police brutality. Think about how race relations really soured under the Obama administration. Now, people always say, well, he's black, he's the president, he don't do so much. But why be president if you're afraid to do what is right? If you are afraid, to shape the narrative, to reclaim the narrative, why be president if you're afraid to die? Dr. King said, if a man is not willing to die for anything, he ain't fit to live. If you're not willing to put your life on the line for anything, why are you trying to be ambitious? Jack Johnson was willing to put his life on the line to be the heavyweight champion of the world. He just didn't want to be a very good black boxer. He wanted to be the best black boxer. He wanted to be the greatest boxer of all time. That's it. He want to be the best boxer, period, not just the best black boxer or just the black heavyweight champion. He wanted to be the heavyweight champion of the world. He put his life on the line for that, y'all. You understand that, he was boxing. You got white men around with guns, fuck all that concealed carry. They had it out in the open. You don't tell how many death threats this brother got. I mean, you hear stories about how the police catch a white man near his residency in Chicago trying to blow his head off. You don't know what type of hell Jack Johnson was catching, even from his own people. Now, people who talk about Donald Glover and other folks, how they woke if they got a white girl as their baby mama or as their wifey or as their girlfriend. Jack Johnson was dealing with those same issues. But you trying to tell me that, with that being said, that Jack Johnson was not a great symbol of black pride? Regardless of what his personal flaws may be, Jack Johnson stood up to the system and fought it like a man. And he's willing to put his life on the line for that. So, I mean, my thing is this. Don't let nobody try to control your narrative. You tell your story the way you want to tell it. It's your movie. Jack Johnson knew he was the star of his movie. He wrote the script. He directed the play. He was the star actor and executive producer. And, this is why I had to get on here, because like a lot of people get on their social media and don't even never heard of Jack Johnson until yesterday, because Donald Trump and Sylvester Stallone say he should be pardoned. But my thing is, shame on Obama for not even trying. Even George W. Bush did more to try to pardon Jack Johnson than Barack Obama, the so-called first black president. Even the so-called, black attorney general Eric Holder tried to make excuses, saying that the Department of Justice would not recommend a pardon of Jack Johnson because he's dead, and those type of things could be better used for people who are alive. And then he tried to say something to the effect, what I read in the New York Times article, that Jack Johnson was a domestic violence abuser. And I don't know what it was to be Jack Johnson back then. Like I said, you getting black folks getting lynched every day and a half on rumors of sleeping with white women. When a lot of times these relationships were consensual, that these white women, as with Sister Ida B. Wells, the ancestor Ida B. Wells Barnett, found out that a lot of these relationships that, white men said we got to kill this black man for raping this white women were actually consensual relationships that these white women aggressively sought out. Just like we learned with Emmett Till, that the woman lied on Emmett Till, Carolyn Bryant. And stop saying she's dead. She's not dead. Her sister-in-law, her former sister-in-law, J.W. Malum, the half brother of Roy Bryant, her former husband, his wife died several years ago. Carolyn Bryant is still pretty much alive. I believe she's somewhere in North Carolina. That historian Tim Tyson interviewed her about 10 years ago and put in his book that she lied. Then you have other white folks from where she's from, Mississippi, saying in other interviews that, hey, she was known for having a thing for black men. So I don't know, I just know that there's a lot of black men and black boys who have been terrorized for generations by white women lies. You have to go that far in the history. Look at the Central Park thing, lynch mob mentality when it comes to the media and to the so-called judicial just us system. Think about the Scottsboro boys. The state of Alabama recently posthumously pardoned the Scottsboro boys for being poor black and males. You had white women prostitutes lie on these boys, and then one of the white prostitutes, recanted her story. I mean, one of the Scottsboro boys had such an advanced case of syphilis that it would hurt for him to move or even piss. He had to walk around with a cane, and he was a young black man. This is during the time of Tuskegee experiments. They were not treating the syphilis that black men contracted, and these black men thought they was getting treatment, but they were passing on the ill effects of syphilis to their wives, their baby mamas, and this, their people are still feeling the effects of this to this day. So you're dealing with a wicked, evil system that will allow for the systemic genocide of people, in particular people of color, black folks. This was okay by the, and you trying to tell me the same system that allowed Tuskegee experiments, think they got the moral fortitude and high ground in pardoning Jack Johnson? You mean tell me Barack Obama could not pardon this black man who been dead since 1946? You know, George W. Bush did more to try to pardon Jack Johnson. You mean to tell me John McCain, a white dude from Arizona who's dying from brain cancer now, he tried to do more to pardon Jack Johnson? Harry Reid, I guess the Democratic senator from Nevada who was Golden Gloves boxer, I believe, they did more to try to pardon Jack Johnson than Barack Obama? What did Barack Obama do? Did he increase the bounty on the head of Ashada Shakur? What did he really do? You mean Donald Trump did this less than 2 years in office? He was able to pardon Jack Johnson based on a conversation he allegedly had with Sylvester Stallone. Excuse me, though. You know, another great white hope. See, they couldn't beat the black boxer in real life, so they had to invent a fictional white boxing character named Rocky, who's really his story is based on Joe Frazier, who's also from Philadelphia. So you have a thing in Philadelphia where there's a statue to a fictional character named Rocky, who basically the narrative is copied from Smoking Joe Frazier, one of the great real heavyweight champions who happen to be black. He should have a statue in Philadelphia, not no damn Rocky. He had a boxing gym in Philadelphia for years. Smoking Joe Frazier is the real deal, and yet they make a statue of a Hollywood fictional great white hope named Rocky. You know, the city of Philadelphia just got a statue of a black person. Philadelphia has just an amazing black history. But you never know it because they just got a statue of a black figure in Philadelphia. It was dedicated last year. His brother named Octavio Cato, I believe it's Cato. He was a early baseball pioneer, political activist in the city of Philadelphia. Back after the Civil War, he was killed by a white man on voting day because he dared advocate that black folks exercise the power of the ballot. He dared organize black folks into successful sports leagues and educational institutions. Look up Octavius Cato. The city of Philadelphia first black statue was in honor of him, and it was dedicated last year. You know, think about Richard Allen. Think about Smoking Joe Frazier. These are, I always tell people that black history is better than science fiction or Hollywood movies. Because when I tell you about the truth about our people, about black people, you think I'm making this stuff up. These folks never existed, but they do exist. They did exist, and they still do exist. So Jack Johnson, I just think that people need to do their homework. I mean, I'm not doing him justice here, but I'm trying to do my best because people going to put out what they're going to put out. But, you know, let me further add this as well, too. You know, people talking about Democrats, you know, why black folks should vote Democrat. We just saw a Republican president pardon a black man who should never been in trouble to be pardoned in the first place, Jack Johnson. But yet you have Democrats like Bill Clinton. He put to death a retarded black man on death row in Arkansas while he was governor when he was running for president back in 1992. You know, in order to be, you know, look tough on crime. You know, to look tough on crime, he put to death a retarded black man. And I believe his name was Ricky Ray Rector. Look him up, and also look at Barack Obama. He was afraid to pardon a dead black boxing champion who'd been dead since 1946. He feared, even though you had a bipartisan effort for several years pushing for the exoneration of Jack Johnson. And also, I'm thinking about, as I say this, I'm also thinking about the fact, you know, back in 2011, you know, I'm not an expert, you know, Troy Davis, you know, now you got this black woman running for governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams. I don't know too much about her per se. She looks good on paper. That's what I know based on her website. But, you know, we still cheering for black faces in high places that do nothing for the race. The races, you know, the people that need it the most. I mean, could Barack Obama have intervened with Troy Davis? There was reasonable doubt. Yet we allow black people to die every day, you know, for bogus reasons, because they were born into poverty, because they was born into hopelessness, and we don't want to sometimes use our thinking brain. Like I told you, Jack Johnson was a cerebral cat. He was a defensive specialist. He was an intellectual. He was an inventor. Limited formal education, but his university was his life experiences in the world. That was his lesson. That was his university. Just living life. And I think I want to encourage folks out there to keep on living life, because the longer you live, the more you learn. And hopefully whatever you learn, you put it to good use and not only serve yourselves, but to help other people. But I just want y'all to remember that, it was a Republican president that, people say they hate, who basically pardoned one of the most hated men in the history of America, Jack Johnson. You had blacks and whites that didn't like Jack Johnson. Kind of remind me of another polarizing guy who has a mindset of a champion named Kanye West. But that's another story for another day. There's something to think about from your friendly thought provocateur. I've been a fan of Jack Johnson for years. I found his story very inspiring, even with the flaws. And did y'all know that Jack Johnson owned the Cotton Club before it was the Cotton Club? I believe it was called the Deluxe Club. But don't take my word for it. Take a look. It's all online. But I just want to drop this out, because, I have yet to do my take on a royal wedding. I don't believe people need my take on everything, but I just will move because, people understand. We are put here. This is my God work. This is part of my journey. Now, if I knew what I was getting into when I started this, I probably never took the job, because really, is it really a job if I can't cover my expenses? So if you are inspired by what you heard from Brother Herb, please spread the word, but also, donate to the cause, invest in the cause. Buy artwork, buy shirts, buy Jack Johnson shirts, celebrate Black Jack by wearing Black Jack. Because we are our ancestors. We were our story. We claim the narrative. Check out the art, Brother Ron art. R2C2H2.com. Get you a shirt, a Black History shirt, made by Brother Ron. Anything can help. You could donate, make a recurring donate to patreon.com. We all be. Make a PayPal recurring donation or one-time donation. And just, I'm amazed that no matter where I am in the country, where I travel, even in the world, even that people recognize Brother Ron and We All Be. Not just the Baba Gregory interviews, my Jegna, the great ancestor, the revered ancestor, Baba Dick Gregory, but they come for the Baba Dick Gregory interviews, but they stay for the rest of my, exceptional content. And it is exceptional. I'm not bragging, but I put out work. And people are benefiting from it. Because why I know? Because people write me, they call me, and when they see me in public, they tell me. They are using what I'm doing as teaching tools for their village. It's going to take a village to change this around. We got to understand, as Black people, that the real Holy Trinity is the Black man, woman, and child. The Black family is the key for overcoming this oppressive system. The best allies we need are ones like you in the mirror. We need other Black folks working in tandem, in concert, in order to overturn. And sometimes it's not about protesting. It's about investing. The best way to protest what you don't want is to invest in what you do want, to manifest an alternate reality. And that's what I am doing with We All Be movement and with other things. And we are doing things in the community. I'm only one man, but there's other people helping behind the scenes. There's other people that are contributing. I might be the face of this movement, but there's many faces behind the movement and on the side of this movement as we move forward. So each one teach one. But I want to thank you all for listening to me ramble with a purpose, with a cause. And if you like I said, you heard what you heard from Brother Heard, spread the word, but also invest in the movement, because I got some more coming out. And next week I'll probably doing some live streaming. I've been in YouTube jail for over something I could not even control. But the ancestors know what they're doing. The ancestors are my entourage. I shall not fear, want, or be discouraged. Because people don't understand. Nobody knows the trouble. Nobody knows. It's not about me complaining about what I go through. It's a process. You can't have diamonds without pressure. You can't create pearls without irritation. And you can't clean your clothes. You can't clean your clothes without agitation. So it's all part of the game. So I think that's enough for now. I'm gonna have some other people on to talk about Jack Johnson and other things as the We All Be way. But I hope that I was able to illuminate some things beyond the mainstream headlines and fake news outcries. And thank y'all so much, family. Whoever received this, you was meant to receive this. So please amplify it. Whatever you get out of what I'm saying, amplify it. And remember, when it comes to our messengers and the message, treat it like the mailman. Remember my mailman theory. You don't follow the mailman around on his or her route. You go to the mailbox and check it out. Whatever mail that you are meant to receive, receive it. And develop your spirit of discernment. If it's useful, use it. If it's junk, throw it away. So, thank you all so much once again for your ear and time. In the words of the great Duke Ellington, we love you madly. Keep on producing and pushing. Peace.